At this point, the chase looks like it's about to end. He jumps out, tries to run, but with law enforcement all around, there's nowhere for him to go. He can dodge, he can weave, but he won't get very far. On June 9, 2021, a 49-year-old husband would take the life of his wife after 10 years of marriage, and then refuse to reveal where he left her body. "She's gone, sure," her family said, "but let us at least find her and lay her to rest." While police searched for Kiara Wiggins, who they warned was armed and dangerous, Kiara's loved ones refused to give up. "We looking, baby girl. We going to find you one way or the other," they promised. "I need closure," her mother said, "and I won't be satisfied until I get it." The man seen here leading officers on a dangerous highway pursuit is that same 49-year-old husband, Kiara Wiggins. But this isn't just a chase. It's the desperate flight of a man tied to the disappearance of his wife of a decade. On that June day in 2021, Kiara vanished from her home in Roseboro, North Carolina. For weeks, her family prayed she would come back. But 2 months later, their worst fears came true. Her body was found deep in the woods off Boyan Bridge Road, so badly decomposed she was almost unrecognizable. And yet, the nightmare didn't stop there. What investigators discovered next painted a chilling picture of betrayal and violence. Carl's criminal record, his disturbing behavior, and the cold way he separated himself from his wife revealed a truth far darker than anyone had imagined. This was the tragic story of Kiara Wiggins. Her family's words still echo. "If we have to walk those woods, we will. She's out there somewhere and we're coming. Maybe not today, but we're coming to find her." Kiara Denise Wiggins was born on July 19, 1982, in Clinton, North Carolina. Affectionately known as Boo Boo, Kiara was the 5th child in her family and the one everyone described as the sweetest. From the time she was little, her radiant smile could light up a room and put anyone at ease. She went on to attend Clinton High School before starting work at Smithfield Packing Company, a local meat processing plant that employed many in the community. But Kiara's life was never just about work. Her faith ran deep. She was active in St. Peter United Holy Church, the place where she had accepted Christ at a young age. To her nieces and nephews, she wasn't just an aunt, she was a second mother, pouring out love and care as if they were her own children. Her sister, Judy Murray, later said, "She was a sweetheart, the kindest girl you'd ever meet. She had a big heart to go with that big smile." For years, Kiara's life was filled with family, faith, and the steady rhythms of a small town. But everything changed when she met a man who would alter her path in ways no one could have imagined. By her late 20s, Kiara crossed paths with 49-year-old Kiara Wiggins, a man 10 years her senior. Despite the noticeable age gap, their relationship developed quickly. Before long, they were married and settling into a life together in Roseboro, North Carolina, a tiny town of just over 1,200 residents, where neighbors waved from their porches and everyone knew each other's business. Their wedding was small but filled with joy, the photos capturing bright smiles and promises of a happy future. Together they built a home and spent more than a decade in a marriage that, from the outside, looked steady. To casual friends and neighbors, Carl and Kiara appeared to be the picture of stability. They attended church, showed up at community gatherings, and kept a home that reflected years of shared effort. People described them as quiet, hardworking, and committed, the kind of couple who had faced life struggles and still managed to stand side by side. But behind the doors of their Roseboro home, things were far more complicated than anyone realized. Those closest to Kiara would later reveal that tension often simmered just beneath the surface of her marriage. Arguments would erupt and then be quickly swept aside, all for the sake of appearances. Kiara, always known for her warmth and generosity, kept her struggles private. She didn't want others to see the cracks forming in her relationship. Carl, however, was described as increasingly controlling, with a temper that became harder to ignore as the years went on. The marriage that once looked stable from the outside was quietly unraveling within. Friends and family sensed something wasn't right, but none of them could have imagined how dark things were about to become. To her loved ones, Kiara was the kind of woman who could always be counted on, warm, dependable, and deeply rooted in family. She never went a single day without calling her mother or her sister, Judy Murray, often just to share the little details of her day. So when those daily calls suddenly stopped, everyone knew instantly that something was wrong. The last confirmed sighting of Kiara was on June 9, 2021, at the Roseboro home she shared with Carl. From that day on, her phone went silent. For a woman who never missed a call, the silence was a red flag her family could not ignore. Reports soon spread, 39-year-old Kiara Wiggins was missing, and her family insisted it was completely out of character for her to go more than a day without contact. When Judy reached out to Carl for answers, he brushed her off, saying Kiara was staying with a friend. But when Judy pressed for a name, Carl's mask slipped. His response was sudden and angry. "He told me she was with some friend," Judy recalled. "I said, well then tell me the friend so I can reach my sister." And that's when he blew up. Carl's hostile reaction only deepened the family's suspicions. Something wasn't right, and everyone began to sense he was hiding more than he was willing to admit. In the days that followed, Kiara's loved ones tried everything, calling, texting, even reaching out to her friends and coworkers, but no one had heard from her. The silence was deafening. What made it worse was Carl's behavior. Instead of leading the search for his missing wife, he grew more defensive every time the family pressed him. He offered no updates, no reassurance, only vague excuses. Soon, the family realized they couldn't wait any longer. "We looking, baby girl. We gonna find you one way or the other," one relative said. Another added, "I need closure. That's what I need. And I won't be satisfied until I get it." By June 18th, 9 long days after Kiara was last seen, the family officially filed a missing persons report. Deep down, their fears were already hardening into grim certainty. Judy Murray later explained, "We knew something wasn't right. We just didn't know what it was." Police began asking questions, but even they quickly ran into a wall. The family admitted that while Carl and Kiara had been married for about 10 years, they didn't really know him well. They last saw him the Saturday after Kiara disappeared, when they confronted him directly. His only explanation was the same tired line: "She was with a friend." But now there was an even bigger problem. Carl himself had vanished. He wasn't at the house, he wasn't answering calls, and neighbors said they hadn't seen him in days. Just like Kiara, he had seemingly disappeared into thin air. And when police finally tracked Carl's movements, what they uncovered was darker than anyone expected. On June 17th, investigators learned he had stolen a black 2003 Ford Excursion, license plate KM2969. Warrants were quickly issued for felony larceny and possession of a stolen vehicle, on top of Carl already being wanted for questioning in his wife's disappearance. Then came the first real breakthrough. Investigators discovered Kiara's silver Oldsmobile abandoned in Bladen County. It was the first physical clue that something terrible had happened. Meanwhile, Carl was still on the run. That changed on the evening of June 23rd, when he was spotted driving the stolen Ford Excursion along Interstate 40. When officers tried to pull him over, he hit the gas. What followed was a dangerous high-speed chase that stretched for more than 35 miles, cutting through multiple counties and forcing innocent drivers to scatter out of the way. Police deployed spike strips as Carl swerved recklessly down the highway. Finally, he lost control. The SUV slammed into a guardrail, sparks flying, before Carl flung open the door and bolted on foot. "He's out! He's running across," one officer shouted. "But this is over, he's not going to get very far." Several officers sprinted after him as he darted into the woods. The pursuit was tense. Carl was considered armed and dangerous, and no one knew what he might do if he slipped away. But he didn't get far. Within moments, police tackled and arrested him, hauling him into custody and transferring him to the Sampson County Detention Center. For Kiara's family, the news was a surge of hope. "Thank God they found him," her mother, Laura Bean, said. "Maybe now he'll tell us where she's at." To them, Carl's arrest felt like the key that might finally unlock the truth. But that hope didn't last long. Once inside the interrogation room, Carl shut down completely. He demanded a lawyer and refused to answer a single question about Kiara's disappearance. Detectives were left staring at a chilling puzzle. A young woman gone without a trace, a husband caught fleeing in a stolen car, and still no body to prove what had really happened. Carl Wiggins refused to say a word without a lawyer. While he sat in custody, investigators turned their attention to the truck he had been driving, hoping it might hold clues to Kiara's whereabouts. Her mother told reporters she could only pray that Carl would finally reveal anything that would lead them to her daughter. With little to go on, search teams launched a massive effort across Sampson County's 962 square miles. Fields, creeks, woods, and abandoned properties were combed relentlessly. Volunteers joined deputies, cadaver dogs, and drones in what became one of the largest search operations the area had ever seen. Days stretched into weeks and hope began to fade. Some feared the case was slipping toward cold case territory. Then, on August 23, 2021, everything changed. Searchers turned their focus to a wooded area near Boyan Bridge Road, roughly 10 miles from the Roseboro home Kiara once shared with Carl. First, nothing stood out, but officers soon spotted patches of earth that looked freshly disturbed, as if someone had tried hastily to bury something. Cadaver dogs were brought in, and within minutes, one alerted strongly on the site. Investigators began to dig. What they uncovered confirmed the family's worst fears. Buried in a shallow grave was the badly decomposed body of a woman. Clothing fragments and a tattoo on her forearm offered the first indication of who she was. Her sister, Jackie Williams, said through tears, "They don't know for sure, but they have a high possibility that's my sister because of a tattoo on her forearm." The remains were sent to the medical examiner. 2 days later, on August 25th, the Sampson County Sheriff's Office confirmed the heartbreaking truth. It was 39-year-old Kiara Denise Wiggins. Her death was ruled a homicide, though because of the level of decomposition, investigators initially withheld certain details. Still, the discovery was enough to shift the entire case. Carl Wiggins, already jailed for felony larceny and the high-speed chase that ended in his arrest, now faced the most serious charge of all: first-degree murder. The Sampson County District Attorney's Office wasted no time upgrading Carl's charges. What many didn't realize at first was that Kiara's disappearance wasn't just a sudden tragedy, it was the devastating conclusion to a long history of Carl's criminal behavior and instability. Court records revealed he was a habitual felon with offenses stretching back nearly 3 decades. His rap sheet included breaking and entering, resisting arrest, and possession of a firearm by a felon. With such a past, suspicions about his role in Kiara's death only grew darker. When word spread that Kiara's body had been found, the community was shaken to its core. For weeks, her family had clung to hope that she might still be alive somewhere. But the confirmation shattered that hope completely. Her mother wept openly, saying her daughter had never deserved such a fate. Her sister admitted she was left with nothing but grief and the painful question of why it had happened at all. The grief stretched beyond the family. Friends, neighbors, and church members gathered near the site where her body was discovered, holding candlelight vigils and prayer circles. Flowers, balloons, and handwritten notes piled up at makeshift memorials. To those who knew Kiara, she was selfless, giving, and deeply faithful, the kind of woman who poured herself into others and kept her faith at the center of her life. Local activists pointed to her death as yet another example of how domestic violence can remain hidden until it erupts into tragedy. Churches hosted prayer services, neighbors comforted one another, and her loved ones clung to the one memory they said could carry them through: her smile. "I'm just going to remember that smile," one family member said. "That's what will get me through the hard days. Because if I don't hold on to that, I'll start crying, and I don't want to cry." But as the mourning continued, court documents revealed even more disturbing details about Carl and Kiara's marriage. Family members testified that Carl often isolated Kiara from those who loved her. Despite being married for 10 years, many relatives admitted they barely knew him. Investigators uncovered a pattern of frequent arguments, some sparked by suspicions of infidelity, others over Carl's refusal to work or contribute to the household. Those closest to Kiara later said she had been thinking about leaving him. That decision, they believed, may have been the breaking point that pushed Carl over the edge. After her funeral, Carl Wiggins made his first court appearance to face murder charges. Standing before the judge, he showed no remorse. Instead, he simply requested a court-appointed attorney. Prosecutors argued fiercely against granting bail, pointing to Carl's long record as a habitual felon and the fact that he had already tried to escape once in a high-speed chase. The judge agreed. Carl Wiggins was ordered to remain in custody without bond. For Kiara's family, this was only the start of a long road toward justice. They were relieved he could no longer run, but they knew trials take time, and Carl had already shown he was determined to stay silent about what really happened to their loved one. While he sat in the Sampson County Detention Center, prosecutors made clear they would pursue first-degree murder charges to the fullest extent of the law. During pre-trial hearings, Carl shuffled into court in shackles, eyes fixed on the floor. His court-appointed attorney asked for more time to review evidence, while prosecutors laid out a chilling picture. A man manipulative, controlling, violent, with a criminal history stretching back decades, now accused of the ultimate betrayal, killing his wife. Then new details began to surface. Court records revealed what likely happened on the night Kiara vanished. Neighbors reported hearing shouting from the Wiggins home on June 9, 2021. That same evening, phone records showed Kiara suddenly stopped communicating. For a woman who never missed a call or message, the silence was alarming. GPS data from Carl's phone placed him near Boyan Bridge Road that night, the very place where Kiara's body would later be found. Investigators pointed to this as the smoking gun. It tied him directly to the burial site. To prosecutors, it was proof he had not only killed Kiara but deliberately hidden her remains. Carl, however, denied everything. He never gave an explanation, never expressed remorse, and never admitted why Kiara's body was left in a shallow grave. Prosecutors leaned on this silence, arguing that his refusal to help in the search, combined with his desperate flight from police, was evidence of guilt. The defense tried to spin another story. They suggested Kiara may have left on her own, and Carl panicked when suspicion fell on him. But as of the last updates, no verdict or sentencing had been confirmed. That uncertainty has left Kiara's family trapped in limbo, still waiting for justice, still carrying the weight of unanswered questions. Community leaders spoke out, calling Kiara's case a sobering reminder of how domestic violence can escalate without warning. Churches organized awareness events. Advocacy groups pushed for stronger protections for survivors, using Kiara's name as a rallying cry. Her funeral was held in late August 2021, just days after her remains were identified. The service drew hundreds: family, classmates, co-workers, church members, and neighbors from both Clinton and Roseboro. Her nieces and nephews tearfully remembered her as Aunt Boo, their second mom who spoiled them with love. Friends spoke of her laugh, her hugs, and the way she brightened every room she entered. Her casket, draped in flowers in her favorite colors, was carried out as gospel hymns filled St. Peter United Holy Church, the same sanctuary where she had found her faith as a child. Noticeably absent was her husband, barred by law as he sat in jail facing murder charges. The grief was heavy, but her family held on to the comfort that Kiara was finally at peace, and that the fight for justice had begun. Kiara Wiggins was a daughter, a sister, a mother, a woman who deserved a life of love and peace, not one cut short by the man who had vowed to protect her. Until society confronts the reality of abuse and demands accountability, stories like hers will continue to happen. So now I ask you, what do you make of Carl's refusal to cooperate? Was his silence guilt, arrogance, or something even more sinister? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe for more cases like this. Most importantly, let's honor Kiara's memory by making sure her story is never forgotten.